Hey guys, Josh here, and on October 12th, Rear Sekai was released for the Nintendo Switch in Japan. This is a game developed by Hakama, the studio that works on the Rune Factory games. I've been playing it for the last few days, and in this video, I'd like to share with you my thoughts on this game so far. So if one day it does get released in English, you will know what to expect. But if you're really curious about playing it right now and you're considering importing it, I will also be talking about how accessible this game is if you don't understand Japanese. But first, who is behind Rear Sekai and what is this game about? As I said in the intro, this game was developed by Hakama, so you might see a few similarities with Rune Factory, especially as it's being produced by Yoshifumi Hashimoto, who produced the Rune Factory series, as well as multiple Story of Seasons games. The character designer is Minako Iwasaki, who also worked on the characters for all of the Rune Factory games, so even though this game doesn't take place in the Rune Factory universe, it definitely has some Rune Factory flair to it. For example, this story. You start the game by picking between a male and a female protagonist, and you guessed it, they don't remember anything. You end up in a little town called Elrentaros. You meet the townspeople there and help them with various tasks. From time to time, you find yourself waking up in an alternate universe where you meet characters who look just like those from Elrentaros, but instead you're at school in a modern day setting. These phases of the game will just consist of dialogues, so unless it comes later, I don't think you ever actually get to walk around the school or do anything there. But through the story, you will be trying to figure out what is happening, which world is reality, and which one isn't. To me, the story feels a little bit like a visual novel because there are no cutscenes, no 3D models or animations that are involved. It's just a background, character portraits, and a lot of text. There is a good variety of characters, each have their own personality, and I really like their designs. They're very Rune Factory-esque, and it's been fun to follow along the story, but there's definitely a lot of dialogues in this game. In terms of gameplay, Rear Sekai is a dungeon crawler action RPG extremely similar to Silent Hope, which also came out recently and which does actually have some connection to Rune Factory, and so I will be comparing these two games a lot. The main gameplay loop is exploring dungeons, going back to the town to interact with the villagers and deepen your bond with them, making changes to your character's build, then going back into the dungeons. Dungeons usually consist of about 10 different rooms, and you'll be fighting a ton of monsters in each one, and a boss on the last one. Defeating monsters does not give you experience in this game, and you don't level up your character. Instead, you will be getting equipment, which is the main way to strengthen your character, as well as gold that can be used to upgrade that equipment. There are multiple weapon types, such as swords, axes, and katanas, and the speed and strength of your attacks will vary depending on the type you choose, and you can change your weapon at any time, so you don't have to commit to a specific type. Every piece of equipment also has unique traits, and depending on the rarity level, it will have between 1 and 4 stars that can be used to allocate certain upgrades. The combat in Rear Sekai is pretty simple. You attack with Y, dodge with B, X is reserved for weapon-specific skills, then L, ZL, R, and ZR can be customized with any other skills you would like, such as healing, magic, or some long-range skills. In terms of difficulty, I'm about 10 hours in, and so far it feels pretty well balanced. There are 3 difficulty settings: easy, normal, which is the one I'm playing at, and hard, and these can be changed at any time, so if you ever find yourself struggling with a certain boss, for example, or if you're looking for a bit more of a challenge, you have this flexibility. One thing that does make this game a bit easy, and maybe even too easy for some people, is that whereas in Silent Hope, for example, you only have 2 health potions for each run, in Rear Sekai you have healing skills that can be used as many times as you'd like. You just have to wait for the cooldown to end. It takes not too long. So if you ever find yourself in a tough situation, it's usually not too hard to just run away for a few seconds and heal yourself. So unless you're severely under-equipped or you're facing certain bosses that are a bit more tricky, the game isn't too difficult. You also start each run with an extra life, but if you do die, then you will lose all of the gold and equipment found during your run and you will have to start over. If you do make it out alive, you'll of course get to keep everything you found and you will unlock harder versions of the same dungeon, with most dungeons having between 3 to 6 variants. These variants will feature new monsters and bosses, and sometimes a few minor changes within the dungeon itself, but for the most part the rooms are the same. The monsters and the bosses are really what keep things interesting, especially the bosses. I love how they all feel different and have very unique designs. After you made enough progress in a specific dungeon, you will unlock a brand new one with a different theme. Each variant of a dungeon has 5 missions to complete, For example, these missions can be things like beating a whole floor without taking any damage, clearing the dungeon with equipment that's under the recommended level, or finding all of the extra portals, which are these portals that bring you to treasure rooms where you'll find a ton of equipment. Completing these missions will accomplish requests for villagers who will then reward you with things like new skills, as well as friendship points that will unlock events letting you get to know more about the different characters. Some missions will also give you tokens that can be used to gift villagers and form an alliance with them, so there is a good incentive to redo older dungeons and complete all of these missions. At any time you can pick one character to form an alliance with, and they won't be following you around or anything like that during dungeons. I wish they did, but they will support you with passive buffs like extra health, additional damage, and things like that. Each character will usually have 2 buffs that are unique to them, and then 3 buffs that are the same for most characters, and you will have to unlock them one by one for each character by buying them gifts with the tokens. You can also obtain tokens by farming, so there is farming in this game. It's extremely simple, but whenever you complete a dungeon, you will have a chance to see some sparkles on the world map, and these are seeds that you can collect and then plant in the fields. After maybe 1 or 2 days, you can harvest them and you will get some of these tokens. Besides that, while you're outside dungeons, you can also change your equipment, and this is the most important since your character doesn't level up. In fact, I found myself changing after pretty much every run, so you never keep the same equipment for too long in this game. But compared to Silent Hope, there's no crafting. You can just equip whatever you find in the dungeons right after you're done, and I feel like it makes the pacing a bit more pleasant. It's really quick to just change your equipment, upgrade it, sell the old one, and get back into the action. Since you just play as one character in this game, you also don't need to keep track of equipment for a bunch of characters. Overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay loop, and I love how everything you do in the village is very quick, it flows very nicely, and it's also very addictive because every time you get out of a dungeon, you will have equipment that is slightly better, and you'll want to do just one more run and try the dungeon on a harder level, or complete some of the missions that you missed before, but that is pretty much all there is to this game. So if you're interested in playing Rear Sekai but you cannot read Japanese, will you enjoy it? When it comes to the story, there is a lot of text in this game, so if you want to understand everything that's happening, and you want to really get to know the characters, you will need pretty good reading skills and you will be reading a lot. The good news, however, is that you can easily progress in the game without having to understand anything that's happening in the story. You will never be asked to go talk to a specific character or to go to a specific place. The gameplay is really just redoing the same dungeons on a harder difficulty until you unlock a new dungeon. Then you go do that one and repeat the process. The story and dialogues will all trigger automatically whenever they have to, and you can also fast forward or skip them, so you won't have to sit through tons of dialogues if you can't read. The only thing that would be useful for you to know is how to read the different abilities from each weapon, the different alliance skills, as well as the missions. And these are usually just a few words, so I think that a tool like Google Translate could help you make your way through it. But if you can read them, you will have a smoother experience, and you will quickly recognize that it's often the same words and phrases that are being reused. So if you don't mind missing out on the story and characters and you just want the gameplay, I would say it's a pretty approachable game and you won't feel stuck or lost even if you cannot read. But of course, it would be amazing if they decided to release it in English, as I think a lot of people would enjoy Rear Sekai. If you think you would like to play a game like Rear Sekai but you don't want to bother with Japanese, I invite you to check out my review of Silent Hope, as you may be interested in that game too. Overall, Rear Sekai is a fun dungeon crawler very similar to Silent Hope, but I found the flow of the game a bit more enjoyable since there is no crafting, and there's also more of a story and interesting characters. I like that it borrows a few elements from Rune Factory, such as relationships and farming, even if they're very minimal, as they add a bit of personality to the game and make it feel like a Rune Factory spin-off, even if it's technically not. As with most games in the genre, it can get a bit repetitive, but because you're constantly getting new equipment and new skills, it manages to keep things interesting and it's pretty addictive. Let me know what you think of Rear Sekai. Will you be trying the Japanese version? Are you waiting for, hopefully, an international release? Or is that not the kind of game for you? Let me know what you think. Leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.